Welcome to episode 61 of Anchored in Education. I'm E. Scott England, and Anchored in Education is the podcast dedicated to all things education. Educators across the world routinely engage in conversations surrounding fundamentals, concepts, and new ideas that improve this great profession. Sometimes we agree, other times we disagree. But at the end of the day, we are all anchored in education. Remote learning has forced millions into reimagining education. For many educators, this has meant taking planned out lessons and having to decide the best way to deliver those lessons to students. There have been Zoom lectures, taped video lessons, and more. We have seen viral photos of teachers who have gone to students' houses to reteach a lesson to a struggling student. It has been a time in which everyone, educators, parents, and students alike, realize is much different than the norm. So many educators have been doing whatever they can to deliver a sense of normalcy to their students. One such educator is Nathaniel Lackey. Nathaniel is a math teacher at Fairfield Community High School. Yes, the same Fairfield in which I reside, only my district is pre-K through 8th grade. Nathaniel is also my neighbor, but neither the fact that he is in the same town nor my neighbor is the reason for him being on the podcast today. No, Nathaniel was invited onto the podcast because of the unique ways he has been delivering lessons. Let's just say unique may be describing it mildly. I don't want to say too much because I want you to hear it from him. Nathaniel, welcome to Anchored in Education.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, you know what? I'm excited to have you. I shared on Twitter a picture of you a while back. It got some pretty good likes and comments and everything, and that's when I realized, well, we need to talk a little bit more about you. What people may not realize, out of respect for social distancing, shelter in place, is we're recording this via phone, but we actually live 100 feet from each other.
Yeah, we're right across the street from each other.
So, but that's fine. That's what makes it great and provides entertainment for my kids whenever they are outside in the backyard. But we'll get to that in just a second. So before we get started, we'd like to find out a little bit more about you and how you became anchored in education.
Absolutely. So teaching is something, I think a lot of kids want to be a teacher when they're young because that's the only job they kind of know.
Yeah.
And that's something I've always been interested in it. And I kind of went away for a while. But what really drew me back in is when I think about the impact of teachers in my life, outside of the classroom, even there's just been some tremendous people.
Sure.
That have just been so influential to me. And I just to name a few, and the list could go on, but Angie Hout was really big when I was going through middle school. She helped me both in and out of the classroom in a lot of ways, and I'm really thankful for her.
Uh-huh.
Marty Slover, Tammy Austin, Coach Book, Adam Book at the high school, a bunch of people, and I could go on and on. But I think about how influential a teacher can be on a young kid's life, growing up. And I've always wanted to have that kind of impact in some way. And then I really felt as I grew up, I'm well, I love education. I love teaching. I just want to go. I want to go into that field.
Yeah.
You can impact people in a lot of different fields for sure. But I just always felt my calling was in the classroom, especially when I consider where my passion is with mathematics and things like that. So definitely a lot of influential people in my life. And if I list the top 10 influential people in my life, I would say 8 or 9 of them are teachers.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I would like to be a part of some of those lists in a sense,
Absolutely. Well, and I think that's a lot of our hopes whenever we get in there is we try to emulate those who served before us that inspired us, and then we can be honest here. We pick up some tips and tricks of those who we don't necessarily want to emulate and make sure, hey, we don't do what they did.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's all right too. So what's interesting is you listed about 4 teachers there, and 2 of those taught in my district. One is retired, one still teaches, and then the other 2 you mentioned are actually coworkers now at the high school.
Yeah.
So how is that that dynamic, being that you were a student and walked the halls, and now you're walking the halls as one of their colleagues?
The transition was a little weird at first, because it's hard for me personally to ever see myself being on the same level as these people.
Sure.
Because I mean, like I said, I will always look up to them as teachers and role models. But they welcome me with open arms, and they've still, I'd say both Adam Book and Tammy Austin both have been like just mentors to me as a young teacher. And I asked them a ton of questions, both about teaching and just about like handling like the time management and things like that go with coaching as well.
Right.
Um, it's still a little odd in some ways, just because I still feel like I don't feel like I'm on the same level. So it feels weird to say coworkers, but at the end of the day, we are, and they treat me like that, and they have a lot of respect for me, and I'm really appreciative of that. And they always go out of their way to make sure I'm doing okay and handling this first year and
Yeah.
all that. It's a weird transition, but it's been great.
Absolutely. Well, and they're also, continue to demonstrate and make an impact. So when you're in their position later on down the road, now you have an idea of, what a new teacher needs out of a veteran teacher.
Exactly. That's something I've tried to tell myself a lot. Is like, remember what this first year is like, and remember like what really made a difference to you in your first year.
Yeah.
Because eventually I'm going to be in that position, like you said, where I'll be teaching in a school where a first year teacher will join, and I would love to be a similar, influence in their life and help them get through it. Just because I know it's not the easiest thing. The first year lives up to what people say, what teachers tell you about the first year. It lives up. So it'd be nice to be, in that role for a future young teacher.
You bet. And we've talked about first year teaching a lot on the podcast over the year, a little over a year we've been going here. And so, people have probably figured out now that you're in your first year, full-time teaching,
Yeah.
and a little bit of coaching as well. But my guess is that you, kind of like the rest of us, never had pandemic preparedness in your teacher prep work. So, I mean, what were your first thoughts when schools were mandated to shut down back in early March?
Well, that's kind of funny. Like when it happened, I'm like, well, it just makes sense with the way this year's gone. It's just all over the place, and it just makes sense this would happen in my first year. And that was kind of my joking thought, but like honestly, it was a bit of a gut punch, like because
Yeah.
although at the time we knew like it was set up for 2 weeks or whatever,
Right.
but I kind of had a feeling in the back of my mind that it was probably it, like with face-to-face instruction. I just had a feeling, and it was a little pessimist in me because I didn't want it to be the end of my first year. It was hard. So it was like that last day, I didn't know if I should start saying my goodbyes to the kids and all stuff like that. So it's like, it was really tough in that way because I wasn't prepared to go remote instruction. I was ready to just keep going face-to-face and see these kids every day and work with them every day. So that, like, hearing that was pretty devastating in a lot of ways. But I've since found, I guess, the light at the tunnel and tried to make the most of it, and really find a way to enjoy it, like as much as you can, try to make the best of the situation.
Yeah.
So definitely at the beginning, I was not super pumped for this. I'm still not. Like if I could choose, I would obviously rather be in the classroom with the kids.
Yeah. Common theme that we hear.
Yeah. But I feel like with the situation, I've managed to at least find a lot of joy and fulfillment out of like the circumstances.
Absolutely. So, well, let's just get into a little bit of what you're talking about. All right. So you kind of alluded, Illinois began remote learning officially on March 31st, because the first 2 weeks, the 17th through the 30th, was just kind of the, let's figure out what's going on.
Right.
But then we officially March 31st. On April 1st, a video was released by your high school. All the teachers had a message for students, and I'm in my kitchen, and I'm watching it on either my phone or iPad, something like that, with Jennifer, and then all of a sudden, there you are, and you're dressed up in a giraffe costume, playing a ukulele. Got some rock star glasses on too. My family absolutely loved it. I want you to walk us through what your hope was when people saw this.
So I don't like. I knew we were transitioning into new territory as a school, and this is stuff that no one has been through, whether you're a teacher or a student. And my students have known me as a little eccentric because I definitely, I'm not afraid to be like myself in a lot of ways, like
Yeah.
just kind of be goofy. And I think that just makes it a lot more fun for me and for them. And so when they allow this creative freedom of a video, I just started like, how can I make it feel like me, like genuinely me talking to the students?
Right.
And I'm like, well, I know I can't just show up in like a t-shirt and jeans or, like just my regular like shirt and tie. And I usually do that, but I'm like, the kids know, like, will remember me, like they will remember me for like that kind of stuff. And I just wanted to show, that regardless, wherever we are communicating, I still want my classroom to feel like my classroom. Like I want it really to feel like I am going out of my way to be who I am. And I'm not going to change that due to the situation. And they're still going to be able to interact with me in that kind of way and see me in that light. And I don't know. I was just really trying to bring some fun, I guess, to the situation as much as I could.
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to. If I just wanted to make people laugh, and because a lot of people are so disappointed to be stuck at home and all this, and then they see their teacher dressed up as a giraffe playing the ukulele, and for a couple minutes at least, they're kind of like taken out of the situation. I hope.
Absolutely, and there's been no executive order that's been issued down that we cannot laugh. That we can't find humor in it, because we absolutely we have to.
Yes.
Otherwise, we would go crazy. And of course, you had the wonderful quote.
A wise man once said that we are Americans, not Americans. And that wise man was me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that person that said that was me. I love it. Yeah. So, but, well, before we move on, what was really funny about that is I'm watching it, and then behind you, because you're walking in your drive, behind you are my kids.
Yeah.
And they're riding their bikes by. I see both of my kids. So I go in and I show them the video, and I said, hey, did you know Mr. Lackey was dressed up as a giraffe? And they're like, oh, yeah, we saw him. We waved to him. He said hi. And we're like, so you never thought to come in and say, hey, there's a big giraffe outside? Because what people may not realize, you're also 6'5" or something?
I'm about 6'8", actually.
Oh, 6'8". Yeah.
So you have that giraffe head, and I'm about 7 foot.
They're like, no, it was just another day in the neighborhood. So
yeah.
But what's funny? So we had that kind of set the tone, and then around April 10th. You began, quote, getting help, air quotes there, teaching math lessons. So first you were helped by Spiderman, then Professor Saurus Rex, followed by a very rocking Bob Ross, and then you've had some extraterrestrial assistants. When was the point when you decided, hey, I'm going to start dressing up as characters to teach these math lessons?
Yeah, so when we first went, so this is before I did the giraffe thing, and we first went to this break. I had a couple like lessons prepared for my students. I just kind of made them on my computer, just kind of videoed me talking, and I showed it on my computer screen and stuff like that. And then I ended up putting a Zoom meeting together, just to see my kids and talk to them a bit and see how they were doing. And I talked to them. I asked them about the video. They're like, I liked it, but it just doesn't feel the same as when we're in class together. And I'm like, I got to change this. I got to change that feeling a little bit.
Yeah.
And so and then when Mrs. Fulkerson approached with the idea for the video where I was in the giraffe costume and all that, I'm like, I just got to make the most of that and like really use that. I mean, I have this extended wardrobe now for my first year.
Yeah.
Where I have all these costumes. I'm like, you know what? Once a year isn't going to cut. I got to get in these costumes more. I got to get out there and have some fun with it. And I like my students are really the ones that kind of, when they said, it just doesn't feel the same. And it's never going to, but I wanted to bridge that gap a little more just by kind of tapping into my goofy side. And
I think it's great. And I know when you were Professor Saurus Rex, my kids did run in that time. And they said, hey, Mr. Lackey. I mean, it was still matter of fact. Like they ran in, but it wasn't like, something shocking. It was just matter of fact. Hey, Mr. Lackey's dressed up as a dinosaur. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm getting ready to grill. And so I look out and I'm like, well, I got to go get a picture.
Yeah.
and I think I asked, like, did you did you have this before? But no, you've
Nope.
added to the costumes.
Yeah. So a lot of these, like when homecoming week comes around, I remember when homecoming week was about to happen, I emailed the people in charge of student council. As soon as I knew, I'm like, hey, you guys got to let me know the dress up days as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So I could kind of start preparing. And that was one of the ones that ended up coming out in that week. Same with the Spider-Man.
Okay.
And yeah, so I didn't have them before this year, but now it's like it's free game for me to use them, and now I've definitely received a lot more response from it.
Absolutely.
all that stuff. So
all right, so the editing of the videos is impressive, and I've seen your brother. He helps out from time to time with filming. And so is this a family affair when it comes to producing original lessons?
Well, so the editing, I've always been interested in like video effects and things like that when I was younger. And it was something when I was really young, I always liked to make videos around the house. And every now and then my brother would help.
Okay.
And I would say my brother and I have a very similar sense of humor and a very similar vision, but we also have enough differences where we can really contribute to conversation with each other in this regard. And when I started making these videos, I would always ask him or I'd always pitch my idea to him first,
right.
And see, if it made him laugh, I'm like, okay, this is gonna work, and then he started helping with the filming. Like he actually filmed in the first Spider-Man one, just because, and so him and I definitely we do a lot together with this, and he helps me come up with ideas, and he's actually helped me with a few ideas that I'm going to try to do before the end of the year. So I'm always, and we talk about it a lot. So when I'm home just hanging out, I'll just say, hey, I got another idea, and we'll just kind of pitch it back and forth and come up with the ideas with each other. And then, like you said, he was outside helping film, and stuff like that. He doesn't get on camera as much, but he does like to be behind the scenes help. So he's been a lot of creative input with this stuff.
Absolutely. So the editing is done by you.
Yes.
Okay.
I can do the editing and all that good stuff.
Very good. So I think a question that everyone wants to know, though, is about engagement. And so you post a teaser on your social media, but the full-length lesson is on your Google Classroom. How have students responded to the lessons?
Yeah, so typically what I put on social media is pretty much the intro, and I always cut it off before I actually start teaching.
Okay.
And then, so the full length lesson, it can range anywhere from about 5 to 15 minutes in between. Try not to overstay the welcome too much, so they'll sit through and watch it. But that first set of videos that I put out before I started getting into the costumes, I'd get a couple emails or something maybe, and like I said, the Zoom call, they kind of mentioned it.
Yeah.
But since I've done this idea where I've been getting help, the response has been a lot better, and I've been able to stay in touch with a lot of students. And even if they're not, a lot of students go out of their way to message me, whether it's through Remind or email, just to say, I can't stand you as a teacher. Definitely tongue in cheek type of stuff. But so it's definitely encouraged a lot of communication with them. Some of them just go out of their way to message me just to let me know that I'm kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm taking any sort of engagement I can have, because it's just, even if they're not messaging me about math, if they understand everything in the video, they're still going out of their way to engage with me on some level, which I think is really great.
Absolutely. So, we've heard a little bit, and we'd like to think that we all know in Illinois and most all of our other states, we're closing out our year on remote learning. But now, I don't know about other states, but our governor has, kind of put some panic in the fear into people about having remote learning kind of in place for fall and what it could look like. So how does just looking ahead, how do you see remote learning being different to start a year instead of after you've had 3 quarters to build relationships with your students?
Yeah, that is the tough question. So when I read that article that basically said that he was preparing, that at least to be prepared for the fall, I started to get a little nervous because I don't know. I won't know any of the kids really that I'm going to get. I might have coached a couple of them when I was at Center Street, but I was a little nervous in that regard because they don't know me and I don't know them. So I don't know how they're going to react when they see a T-Rex teach the math lesson. That being said, I think from what I understand, I've talked to my freshmen a lot, and they've said, we've told our eighth grade friends, about you and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
so they know of me a little bit, and it's going to be different for sure. And like with like the grading and all this stuff, where it's like, how do we make these decisions?
Right.
And what content do you cover? So it's definitely going to be an entirely different challenge, I believe. But for me, I still think I will probably do a little bit more in terms of like Zoom or something to see the new kids' faces if I can, because I really want to see them and kind of get an idea for their personality, and also just kind of hear them talk about math a little bit.
Sure.
Because it's hard to teach to people you don't know, I think, and so it'll be a challenge. And I think I'll spend a lot of that first time, if we have to do that, spend a lot of the first, mandated time in the classroom with spend a lot more time getting to know them as well as I can over the through electronics, because like I just feel a lot more comfortable teaching to people I know, and I just feel like I'm more effective when I know what they respond to and what doesn't necessarily work as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm hoping I can get an idea of that if we have to do that.
Yeah, and we're all hoping that is a very big if, and that we don't have to have the conversation. But
exactly,
it's out there now. So, but what you're telling me through all this, even with some Zooms and everything else, that it's a good chance we'll see the extra assistance coming.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna reel it in or rein it in.
All right.
I think this is just a good way. Whether they know me or not, I think it'll at least it's a hook to make them watch. Like, what is he doing this week? Well, I got to see what he's doing this week.
I mean, I only get to see the teasers on social media, and there's been times like, I'm game to watch a lesson if he wants to put the whole thing on here just to see. So, I think, and we've talked a lot about this, but my favorite thing is that you record all of these outside. And like I said, I'm grilling. Boom, T-Rex is out there. The other day, Jennifer and I and the kids were all planting the garden, and we look over and, an alien's dragging you all over the place. Do you feel that by putting yourself out there like this, you're allowing students to see that it is okay to take risks and be yourself?
Absolutely. And I think that's something I've been really aware of all year. One, when you come in as a young teacher, kids, especially at the high school level, I'm sure this is true at a lot of levels, but the high school kids are just naturally drawn to you a little bit more because you're younger and you're a little more relatable in that sense.
Right.
I was in their shoes, just like 5 or 6 years ago. So they're drawn to that. And for me to be in that position and just kind of go off the wall and completely just be myself, not worry about my image and that type of thing. I'm just being me, and I enjoy it. And I hope they see that I just have fun. I have a lot more fun. And like, if they would compare the first couple of weeks when I was a little more timid, and really getting my, just kind of getting an idea, getting my feeling for the classroom.
Right.
If they compare those first 2 weeks for the last couple of weeks, they had more fun, I feel like, when I was myself. And I hope they see that.
Yeah.
That, what's, image, and I get it, at the high school level, you're really concerned about what people think and all that stuff. And I hope, me being a young guy, fresh out of college, coming in, being a first year teacher, and then still just being willing to just not hold back. I hope they do see that and are inspired by it in some way to just be like, what, if Lackey can do it, I could do it. If he could do it, about anyone can do it. So
I think that's what positive role models are made out of, right there. It's just putting it out there.
Yeah. And, the funny thing is when I record outside, I feel like every week I get a bigger audience, and I look out and I see people down the street, like standing out on the road, like looking down at me in my alien costume, or at Le Mans, I look down there and I see the people in the shop. Like I have a friend down there, and I was talking to him later, and he told me, he's like, I saw you. We had a bunch of guys just watching you and your alien just kind of running around the street. We had no clue what was going on.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it is. It provides great entertainment to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Nathaniel, before we go, how do you plan on winding down the year? Do you have maybe big plans for upcoming lessons, or does it just happen when the mood or creativity strikes?
Yeah, so I definitely had a few lessons planned out. As soon as I started this idea, I came up with a bunch of little skits or whatever to go with it, which changed a little bit, but the general idea stayed the same. I have about two big ones left, and I'd say that's about right because I've already actually created enough lessons, I think, to go through the year. But I think I'm going to add like a little supplemental one.
Okay.
And then maybe some kind of end of the year deal. And if they want to go out of their way to do an extra math lesson, then great. Like I'm not going to stop them if I give them the opportunity and they take it. That's great because I'm having so much fun doing these videos.
Yeah.
Where it may be like extra in terms of because I'm pretty sure I have enough lessons out where it's going to go to about May 11th, which is our last day. But I'm still going to make a couple more because I'm just having too much fun and they're responding really well. And we have a couple big ones. I don't want to spoil anything.
No. Don't give it away.
But they're going to be good. They're going to be really good.
All right. So. Well, we may have to have a follow-up to see how the year closed out and everything. But Nathaniel, I just want to thank you so much for taking time today for joining us on Anchored in Education.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Nathaniel is as genuine as he sounded. Now, he mentioned Center Street, which is a junior high in my district. Nathaniel was actually an assistant coach for us before transitioning to the high school. My son played basketball when he was a coach, and Nathaniel immediately connected with the students. I cannot imagine, in a first year of teaching, having to also go through this pandemic. Teaching is hard enough, but this adds a whole new level. One of my reasons for having teachers like Nathaniel join Anchored in Education is to help encourage others. I can remember early in my teaching career a colleague making a quip that I am just always looking for attention. Well, I guess in a way I was constantly seeking attention, from my first grade class, but I really was just making it fun for them. Did that mean that sometimes I wore a crown and created a robe to become the King of England to reinforce a lesson? Yep. The goal during remote learning has been to find ways to connect with students. Here's the thing. During an emergency pandemic, we want to make sure students are staying connected and engaged. So if that takes dressing up to drive home a lesson, so be it. And when they learn math along the way, well, score one for education. Let's learn from Nathaniel and those like him. And remember, at the end of the day, we are all anchored in education. Have you heard of masterminds? A mastermind is a gathering of people in a supportive learning community committed to increasing their knowledge and skills to skyrocket their success. Julie Adams, a nationally board certified teacher, educator of the year, and best-selling author, has created the Fully Charged Educators Mastermind. Included is a 10-lesson online course, complete with study guides and a certificate of completion. Learn about neuroscience, critical thinking strategies, stress management, trauma-informed practices, Maslow and Bloom methods, and much more. You'll also receive exclusive access and lifetime membership to Julie's private Facebook group and a PDF of her best-selling book, Fully Charged. This is perfect for both the new and experienced educator who would like to learn the latest neuroscience and research-based strategies to decrease student stress and skyrocket social, emotional, and cognitive success in the classroom. It's also perfect for educators who also want to learn routines and strategies that help to decrease personal stress and burnout and increase health, effectiveness, and fulfillment as an educator. Visit adamsteaching.com to join the Educators Mastermind today. You're worth it.